The Cash-Landrum UFO incident, the UFO that made people sick. On the night of December 29, 1980, Betty Cash, 51, and her friend Vickie Landrum, 57, along with Vickie's 7-year-old grandson Colby, were driving on a rural highway near Huffman, Texas, returning from a Christmas dinner. It was around 9 p.m., dark, and the road through the pine forest was empty. Then, ahead of them on the road, they saw a bright light. As they drove closer, the light resolved into a massive diamond-shaped object hovering above the road at treetop height, shooting a cone of fire downward toward the road's surface below it. Betty stopped the car. The object was blocking the road. The heat radiating from it was intense enough to make the car's metal surfaces too hot to touch. Vickie opened the door at one point and put her hands down onto the roof of the car and was burned. Betty got out of the car and stood in the road watching the object. She later said it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, while also being the most terrifying. Colby in the back seat was crying and screaming. Vickie was holding him and praying. The object eventually rose and moved away. As the object departed, the witnesses observed something that became the most important corroborating detail in the case. The sky around them was filled with helicopters, approximately 23 military Chinook helicopters, they later estimated, along with a few smaller helicopters. The helicopters appeared to be escorting or surrounding the object. The presence of so many military helicopters in rural Texas at night, behaving as though they were accompanying the craft, strongly implied U.S. military involvement. The witnesses were not the only people who saw the helicopters. Other local residents reported seeing them. Within hours of the encounter, all three witnesses began feeling ill. Betty Cash developed the most severe symptoms: massive headaches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and by the following day, large water blisters on her skin. Her eyes swelled shut. Her hair fell out in clumps. She was hospitalized for nearly a month with a diagnosis that treating physicians were reluctant to commit to, but which was consistent with acute radiation exposure. Vickie Landrum had similar but less severe symptoms. Colby had eye inflammation. Over the following months and years, Betty's health deteriorated significantly. The medical case made the Cash-Landrum incident distinctive among UFO reports. Most UFO cases involve only observation. This case involved documented, treated, and persistent physical injury to three witnesses. A physician named John Schuessler, an aerospace engineer by training, conducted an independent investigation of the medical evidence and concluded that the symptoms were consistent with radiation exposure from an unshielded nuclear reactor or a directed energy weapon. His analysis was detailed and specific, citing the specific symptom progression of radiation sickness. Betty Cash and Vickie Landrum filed a lawsuit against the United States government in 1981, seeking $20 million in damages for the injuries caused by what they believed was a U.S. military experimental vehicle. Their attorney argued that the craft was a secret U.S. nuclear-powered experimental aircraft being tested in the area, with the Chinooks present to escort it in case of malfunction. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and NASA all denied ownership of or knowledge of any craft matching the description. The lawsuit was dismissed in 1986 when federal judges ruled no such government aircraft could be identified. Cash-Landrum incident fits uncomfortably into either a conventional or an extraterrestrial explanation. If the craft was a secret U.S. military experimental vehicle, the denial of its existence and the failure to provide medical care to civilians injured by it represent a callous cover-up. If the craft was genuinely anomalous, the presence of military helicopters escorting it suggests that the U.S. military was at minimum aware of the object and tracking it. Neither explanation is comfortable for official narratives. The combination of civilian injuries, helicopter witnesses, and medical documentation makes this case one of the most troubling in UFO history. Betty Cash died on December 29, 1998, exactly 18 years after the encounter. Her health had never fully recovered. She spent most of her remaining years dealing with the consequences of what she encountered on that Texas highway. Vickie Landrum died in 2007. Colby Landrum, who was 7 years old on that December night, survived. No one has ever been held accountable. No official explanation has ever been provided. The Cash-Landrum case remains what it has always been. Three ordinary people who encountered something extraordinary were injured by it, sued for justice, and received none.